To our first natural resource meeting. Excuse me, I said, welcome to our first natural resource meeting. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Senator Carpenter, Senator Mills,
I'm here.
Senator Schickel,
Present.
Senator Southworth, Senator Webb, Senator Westerfield, Senator Wheeler,
Here.
Senator Williams,
Here.
Senator Turner,
Here.
and Chair Smith.
Present. At this time, we're going to dispense with doing the approval of the minutes until we get a quorum, but we can go ahead and start in with the discussion. So at this time, I'd like to ask looks like we've got Deputy Commissioner to come, Charles Bush. I think you're up first, and bring whoever you want with you. Once you sit down at the table, please identify yourself for our records.
Mr. Chairman, can I mention some visitors possibly? Or?
Oh, absolutely. I apologize. I'm going to yield to Senator Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got two sets of visitors back and back. I have the judge executive and magistrates from Union County. If y'all want to raise your hand, they're here today visiting. Thank you guys for being here. And
Well, welcome to our committee. Stand up so we can properly welcome you all. There you go. Thank you all.
thank you. And I have some young ladies from Louisville Mercy Academy that are here advocating for Senate Bill 9, which is Lofton's Law. Ladies, y'all want to stand up?
Yep, stand up. Welcome to our committee.
Thank you.
Do I have any other?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have one of my magistrates from the Martin County Fiscal Court here today. If you please stand, Cody.
Seeing no one else, I apologize. I skipped a little bit ahead of myself. So if you all would join me at this time, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this time, we'll have the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we're in good due order. Get everybody to take their seat. And apologize for the delays. At this time, I'll turn the table over to you. And as I mentioned earlier, please identify yourself for our records.
Yes, sir. I'm Charles Bush. I'm Deputy Commissioner of Facilities Support Services out of the Finance Cabinet.
And good morning. My name is Brian Thomas. I'm General Counsel of the Finance Administration Cabinet.
Welcome. Jim, we'll turn it over to you.
All right. I think we're here to talk about Senate Bill 17, and I think the last provision of Senate Bill 217, and it was put into law last April. Emergency clause. It's for 54,000 acre conservation easement for access for fish and wildlife, and it's to be delivered by the Finance Cabinet in 18 months is what the legislation said. So let's see, we've got a few slides. Want to go over our process, and as I touch on our process, I'll tell you where we are in that process, if that's okay. Initially, we do appraisals on acquisitions. The appraisals were acquired back in last summer, so Fish and Wildlife could apply for their federal grants. So TNC paid for one appraisal per their legislation. We paid for another appraisal and the review. That was all accomplished back in before August for Fish and Wildlife. Next, we have to do a title examination on the properties. 54,000 acres is going to be a big lift for the title attorneys. We have a request for proposal out for this service, and we are hoping to get 3 different firms maybe to come together on this, because we're going to be in 3 different courthouses doing research on the titles. We expect severed mineral on this project, which can be a problem. TNC is helping us out. They're doing a title report, and they will supply that report to our title attorneys, so that'll give our title attorneys a leg up. They also have a mineral consent that they are going to try to put before the severed mineral or the mineral owners. So we're in the process of that. The next two, the environmental review and the baseline management report, we're looking for ways to expedite that. We have TNC's work in Tennessee as a guide, so we're hoping that'll simplify the environmental and the baseline. But again, we're talking about 54,000 acres. After that, we have a land contract that we will sign with the owner. That'd be TNC Italia. That land contract is out for review right now with Fish and Wildlife and the Nature Conservancy. Then we survey the property. We have a survey firm that has been selected. They are preparing their proposed fees for negotiation on the survey. After that, the deed preparation and closing and filing on the property. Part of the deed will be the conservation easement. That'll be the body of the deed, and I know that Fish and Wildlife and the Nature Conservancy are kind of polishing that draft up so our general counsel can review that. Any questions so far?
No, go ahead and continue the
All right.
process that you guys are working on.
Okay, these maps are the courtesy of the Nature Conservancy. The map in front of you shows their entire project. There was 42,250 acres in Tennessee and the 54,000 acres in Kentucky, and 3 counties are shown in green there, and that's Bell, Knox, and Leslie County. Let's see, the Bell County property, let me catch up with my notes. The Bell County property is 31,000 acres, and it has an estimated perimeter of 110 acres. And Senator Turner, that's rough country down there, so that's going to be a challenging survey. Nothing for a surveyor, right? The Knox County property is 12,225 acres estimated, and it's got a 71-mile perimeter to be surveyed. And the last county is Leslie County, Senator Smith. It has 11,790 estimated acres and 136 miles of boundary to survey. So it's going to be a very complicated title search and survey, and let's see, I've got another slide for you. Again, 54,000 acres in Knox, Leslie, and Bell counties. The tracts combined have a 318-mile perimeter that will have to be surveyed. If the tract was a perfect square, it would only be 37 miles, but it's satellite tracts, in holdings. Each one of those boundaries will have to be surveyed, obviously. And every time we hit a contested line, we'll have to drop back and figure out with the other property owner an agreed upon line. So that's in 318 miles, there's going to be some of that there too. In Tennessee, I mentioned earlier, they have 42,500 acre project. They started their survey in 2021. They anticipated 50 to 60 miles of surveying. Now they're looking at 120 miles, and they're about halfway through or halfway complete with that survey. So that's all I have prepared for you. Any questions?
Yes, it looks like Senator Wheeler has a question.
Okay.
Yeah, have you all procured an attorney yet as mandated by SB 217 to complete the title work and this work as you described.
So, Senator, we have an RFP that's out on the street currently. It will close in mid-February to acquire that council.
And if I may be permitted to follow up, when was the RFP issued?
It was the end of January is when that RFP was issued.
Why was that done in the end of January when this bill was passed with an emergency clause, back in April of, towards April of last year?
Well, Senator, we issued that in January 1 because that's ultimately when we were prepared to issue it. But, in working with the Nature Conservancy, at one point we were under the impression that they were going to undertake more title work than we thought they were going to do some of this work, and I think there was just some confusion there, and so that was part of the delay.
Okay, thank you.
And our title will go back 100 years, so it catches that mineral.
Well, we actually have the Conservancy here, and so we can have them if they'd like to go ahead, unless you have anyone else you'd like to table. I'd like to bring the Conservancy up, and anyone they'd like to have speak with them. It depends on how many people they've got. You all welcome to stay, or see, do you have two? Okay, you guys come on up then, and then we'll ask you to sit down. But if you have further comments, we'll certainly yield back to you. Yes, Senator Turner.
The Conservancy asked them, so I hope they would stay. You might be want to call them back.
Yes, I think they agreed to stay back there. They may have additional comments as well, so you are welcome to pull a chair up there to the table altogether if you like. Yeah, just go ahead and join, make it a lot easier. All right, obviously this is our first meeting because this is a very important issue, I think, for us. I'm very excited about what you all have brought to us, but before I speak too much, I'm going to yield to you, David, and let you go ahead and have everybody through your group identify yourself at the table.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. David Femister. I'm State Director for the Nature Conservancy in Kentucky, and I'm joined by my colleague. I'll let her introduce herself.
Good morning, Chairman Smith and members of the committee. I'm Heather Majors-Jeffs, and I'm the Director of External Affairs for the Nature Conservancy in Kentucky.
Thank you. David, I'm going to ask you quickly to just briefly outline what we're meeting about today and the project that you all made us aware of and this unique opportunity for Kentucky for anybody that's either watching right now that may not be familiar why we're having this hearing and what brought us up to this date. I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, and I'm, Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm going to actually defer to my colleague. She has some prepared remarks, and then we're glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So I just want to begin by thanking Chairman Smith, members of the Natural Resources and Energy Committee for the opportunity to provide this public comment today regarding the implementation of provisions contained in SB 217, specifically Section 11. This section directed the acquisition of a permanent conservation, recreation, and public access easement for the benefit of the Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources on more than 54,000 acres of real property in Bell, Knox, and Leslie counties. It's currently owned by Cumberland Forest LP and managed by the Nature Conservancy. The Nature Conservancy is the largest conservation organization in the world. We work in all 50 states and more than 70 countries. Our mission is to conserve the lands and waters on which all life depends, and we strive to do this in a way that is solutions-oriented, science-based, nonpartisan, pragmatic, and non-confrontational. Our approach is to work with partners and stakeholders to find common ground and solutions to benefit people and nature. So the Cumberland Forest Project spans 253,000 acres across Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. It's in the iconic Central Appalachian Mountains, which is a global focal place for the Nature Conservancy. And in 2019, we arranged the acquisition of more than 54,000 acres in Bell, Knox, and Leslie counties in Kentucky. And when combined with the acquisitions in Tennessee and Virginia, this represents one of the largest land deals in our history. And brings together impact investment, wildlife conservation, carbon markets, sustainable timber harvest, and recreational and economic opportunities for the people and communities in this region. Early on, we began discussions with KDFWR about public access and wildlife management opportunities on this property. It's located in the heart of Kentucky's elk zone, which is home to the largest U.S. elk herd east of the Rocky Mountains, and it's an area where Kentucky Fish and Wildlife has long prioritized access. The department expressed interest in purchasing a conservation and recreational easement on the property and had federal funding in hand to do so. What we needed was a 25% non-federal match to leverage these federal funds. And we're so grateful to the members of the General Assembly, including several champions who are here today, who saw this unique opportunity to support a once-in-a-generation conservation, recreation, hunting, and tourism opportunity in southeastern Kentucky, and provided a $3.875 million appropriation to ensure that Kentucky Fish and Wildlife can conserve this wildlife habitat, increase opportunities for sound habitat management, protect critical water resources, and spur economic activity associated with hunting, fishing, wildlife watching, and other outdoor recreational pursuits via public access to this land and all in perpetuity. Language inserted into SB 217, which was a bill last session from Senator Webb, further memorialized the Assembly's support for this project and its direction to move forward. Since this generous state appropriation and SB 217 were passed, the Nature Conservancy has been working in strong partnership with Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, as well as the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, to move forward with the easement. We have regular working group calls, and we invited staff from the Finance and Administration Cabinet beginning in May. So the legislation was passed in April, and in May we did that. So positive action was taken by the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Commission in June of 2022. Various items of due diligence are underway, and as was already stated, 2 appraisals and an appraisal review have already been completed. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has approved Kentucky Fish and Wildlife's proposal to use federal Pittman-Robertson funding for the rest of the acquisition, and a working draft of the easement is nearly complete. In December of 2022, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation was awarded $650,000 from NIFWIF through the Walmart Acres for America program, and this marks the first ever Acres for America investment in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Although this is a notable amount of progress and good news for the Cumberland Forest Project, we have become increasingly concerned with the pace of some of the due diligence and needed approvals, which, if not completed under timelines directed by various funding sources and the language in SB 217, have the potential to derail this significant project and investment in eastern Kentucky. As such, the Nature Conservancy has a few recommendations that you all consider making that would help us advance this easement. First, to clarify that Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, rather than the Finance Cabinet, should acquire the easement. While the Nature Conservancy did not take a position on SB 217 outside of supporting Section 11, this bill did shift many responsibilities from Finance to Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, making the easement process inconsistent with new Kentucky Fish and Wildlife authorities. This should also include ensuring that Kentucky Fish and Wildlife can ultimately sign the deed and other closing documents, as well as be able to receive any due diligence already in process. Next, it should clarify that when transferring the conservation easement, Cumberland Forest LP shall not be subject to the provisions of KRS 382-850, which provides that for any outstanding mineral rights, the subsurface interest owner must consent to the conservation easement. The proposed conservation easement already recognizes that the easement shall not operate to limit, preclude, delete, or require waivers for the conduct of coal mining operations, including the transportation of coal upon or across the subject property. It would also be helpful to clarify that this project shall not be subject to KRS 56040, which requires that the survey be completed prior to closing. A survey on a parcel of this size takes a lot of time, and we would like to propose an approach that was used by our colleagues in Tennessee on their portion of the Cumberland Forest Project, whereby the buyer and seller each put 10% into escrow, and they're working to reconcile that once the survey is completed. And lastly, we would respectfully request an extension of the timeline for completion of the deal. Extending the state appropriation through the end of the biennium budget would provide additional flexibility for certain expenses, such as the survey, which take longer to complete. Again, on behalf of the Nature Conservancy, I cannot overstate how appreciative we are of the General Assembly's support to date for the Cumberland Forest easement. We recognize the difficult decisions you always face in wisely investing our state revenues. In order to fully realize this critical investment, we respectfully request that the committee consider making these adjustments and ensure that we can get this important project across the finish line. Thank you again for your continued support for this once-in-a-generation conservation and public access win for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and David and I are happy to take any questions that you all have. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, to both David and Heather, I really appreciate you as when this thing began to take shape, working with us at Fish and Wildlife to give us this opportunity. Because just to be clear, you did not have to do this. You have a board of investors and other people that you will have to report to, and you could have gone many different ways with this project. But you brought something that is a legacy project. I don't know, in all my years of service, I've been serving the state of Kentucky since 1993. And I think when I leave, if it's another 10 years or whatever, I don't know that I'll work on anything more significant to what we can do to the entire state, but specifically the eastern region, than to participate and make these lands available to those of us in Kentucky and expound the boundaries in a way we've never had access to before. So I want to commend you and make sure that our colleagues and people know this is a significant project, one worthy of our time. And to clear it up, the reason the General Assembly had to take action last year was for delays that had already occurred. When you showed up to us, you were already struggling, having problems with delays coming from the Revenue Cabinet. And it was brought to our attention, and so to give it a nudge, because we understood things do happen and there are delays, we gave it a push, a significant push with the members of the Senate and the House last year to help get this along. And now we're back. I will tell you as chairman, I'm not pleased, because to risk a project like this because of delays that are not really making a lot of sense to me, but I hope there's going to be enough further added documentation to show me why we waited to issue this, or why there are meetings that occurred that nobody from the cabinet even attended, and workshops that could have helped sped this along. But I will hold my comments until later. I do have Senator Turner does have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I got those timelines, this goes back some years that you all got involved. And as I understand from listening to you, there was no survey done when you all first got involved except in the property at that time.
Mr. Chair, and to address the senator's comments, that's right. When the Nature Conservancy through Cumberland Forest LP acquired the property, we did a full title search, but we did not complete a survey prior to that acquisition.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to keep asking questions if that's permission.
Please do.
So there was a title search on how much of the property, just the 55,000 in Kentucky, or was there a title search on some of the other property?
Yeah, title search was completed back 100 years on the entire 253,000 acres that was a part of the overall acquisition, including the full acreage in Kentucky. And I do want to point out just maybe a little bit of correction to prior testimony or clarification, at least from the Nature Conservancy's perspective. We have offered all our title work that was done and completed back in 2019 to the Finance Cabinet, again, to give them a running start. And we've gotten very mixed messages from them, whether that is something they could use or would be willing to use. We feel like, obviously, title on this size of property is a really significant undertaking. We've done a lot of that work, and it's really a matter of updating that title from 2019 to the present. And of course, it's only been in our ownership during that time.
And let me stop you just for a second. Charles, you or Brian, either one, do you want to respond to what David has just said, please?
I believe I've spoken in my comments that we do welcome their title. I think your title may have gone back 60, 70 years. We're going to be required to go back 100 years.
He said 100.
So that is going to give us a leg up with our title attorneys, and we welcome that.
Let me ask another question.
Please go ahead.
As a lawyer who's done plenty of title work, understands Knox County used to be part of Harlan County. If you all, I did hear your statement in response to me that you went back 100 years.
We will be going back
No,
100 years.
the gentleman
I'm
that
sorry.
was from
I'm sorry.
the Natural Resources.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Yes, I think we did go back 100, but actually we may have only gone back 70. So that may have been a misstatement on my part. I'll get that clarified for you after the hearing.
Well, I would appreciate that from you two, because if you went back 100 years, then there's no reason to do any title search, and because title search is title search, lawyers have to certify it. I mean, it's just title search. I went back 100 years in my own, so, and I'll ask if you were raising your hand there, Commissioner Sutton.
We're going to require a policy in the Commonwealth's name from the title attorneys. That's another thing we're going to get out of our title work.
Well, but my question goes to the fact that if they went back 100 years, title work's done in this case.
Yes, sir. We would just have to get that policy in the Commonwealth's name to protect us.
Okay, and
But you're correct. The bulk of the work's done.
yes, okay. So, and it was done before
If they
back
did,
before this bill got passed, really,
if they did go back 100 years.
and it got
Yes,
done back. It was done, and I got this timeline that I'm kind of like the chairman. I'm a little bit bothered because you said that you contacted the administration in May, Fish and Wildlife in June. And if the title work was done years ago, we should have been up and running starting in June, not wait until January of this year to come back and say, where is the cabinet in this process? Shouldn't we? If the title work's done, then you got the survey.
I can't argue with your logic. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
And the reason we're concerned is we're trying to get the biggest elk population there in Bell County. This is connected to Bell County. It runs on down to the Daniel Boone Forest. It comes into McCrae County and around there, and you got the Cumberland Falls right up there. So it's going to be a historical thing for the benefit of that part of the state, which is my district, and it's all of our citizens' district in a sense. So I'm just really concerned, like Chairman and I guess other members are, why we're sitting here today saying we're still going to worry about a title search and we're still worrying about some certification. I understand surveying, but you don't have to get out to the borders to start working on that property, okay? Because everybody's going to agree that them 55,000, you can come in a half a mile and start doing work before when everybody can, a surveyor can give you. We got all this technology in today's world that you go in the deed room and most of it's pictured from a sky. And we own property down in McCrae County, right border. I'm surrounded by the Daniel Boone Forest. And so I'm very concerned about the slowness of this act, of the government agency that slowed the process down when the Nature Conservancy has done so much of the work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Turner. Senator Webb.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I'm sorry I'm late. I've been a little under the weather and about lost my voice, and some of y'all might like that. But as the bill's sponsor, I'm not happy with the way this has been carried out on many levels. I've sat the last year and watched the inaction and the lack of communication between not only the agencies in implementation of this bill that we passed with directives and some of the things that have almost happened with our conservation camp contracts not being, almost kids not being fed at conservation camp on. And I think Charles especially knows that my dad, was Camp Webb's named after my dad. So that I would have probably been leading a protest down Capitol Avenue if that happened. But so as a bill sponsor and somebody who works in a fairly nonpartisan manner and has always worked and grown up with the Fish and Wildlife Agency, and it's truly part of my being, I'm not happy. I, as the bill sponsor, have written letters, made personal visits, sent emails, gone through all the proper protocols to interact with the executive branch on this matter to no avail. and not even as much gotten a response back. And I hate to be sitting here saying this, but I'm just going to call a spade, Mr. Chairman, because I've been waiting for this day and hoped that it never would have to come to this. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I was there when the first elk was released in Perry County on those wobbly legs, and my dad was on the commission, and I'd represented the coal company where it was released, and I've watched that grow. I have been known to go down and speak to the Tennessee Legislature Sportsman's Caucus and have a very good relationship with their agency and Senator Bell and others there, former Senator Bell and others. And on a national level, certainly, we can be the envy of the United States with this project. We've already exporting elk and doing all those things. And after the pandemic, I think we realized that the state bottom line for that area can be driven with tourism dollars and sportsmen and women dollars. So this is a bigger issue than just securing that property. This is a multi-state model. It is, we're being watched on the national level. We appreciate this partnership because, historically it's just coming together and showing that barriers and differences can be met, and there can be compromise in conservation initiatives, and that's what it's going to take to maintain the ecosystem and the opportunity to maintain our culture of sport. But I'm not finished here. I've asked the cabinet and beyond if there's anything that we need to work on, because when I brought this bill forward last year, after much deliberation, work with stakeholders and others, as in toto, I'm talking about the whole bill. And it wasn't an easy process, and a lot of people weren't happy with it, and that's just the way things are sometimes here. But I'm protecting this agency, and I'll continue to protect this agency and its mission. And this is part of its mission. And I have asked for, to no avail once again, as 217 was brought, I sat right there and told everybody it's a work in progress. This isn't the panacea to everything, but it's a work in progress, and we're going to be back. And I've not received any input from the executive branch on how to make it better. I've asked about problems of implementation. I've asked to mediate. I've asked to do anything I can to make this work. After 25 years here, I think I could probably help do that. So as the bill sponsor and a member of this body who was directed in 217 many things, and we're not done. We're not done. If y'all want to have input in the process, please get with me, because I haven't had any input in the process. So I got that off my chest, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the forum and the opportunity, but we're going to fix the problem. We're going to fix the problem. And I do appreciate the work y'all have done on enhancing conservation in the Commonwealth and the United States.
Senator Webb, with her father, obviously has a very, very rich heritage in this, and the gentleman like Dr. Webb, who would have dreamed of something like this. I mean, truly spent their lives fostering an opportunity that sits in front of us right now. For us to have any delay in it would be just bogglesome to their mind to think that we would be putting this off. David, just quickly, and we have the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation is going to come speak, but how much time do you all have? I know we've wasted a few years here trying to get this thing where it should be, and there's a lot of steps we can take before this session's over with to make this go much quicker for you, and hopefully we will. But how much time before you all have to start looking at maybe a different person or group to purchase this opportunity?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And can I just say thanks to Senator Webb for your comments and appreciation for our work. I really appreciate that. I think our primary concerns, Mr. Chair, are timing deadlines associated both with the General Assembly's appropriation and the federal funding. There are timelines on that will come due before our investors lose patience. But they are certainly watching this very closely. This is a unique set up for the Nature Conservancy. Normally, it's us, and we are the sole decision makers, and we are the managing partner in the LLC. So decisions on how wildlife is managed, how timber is managed, that rests with the Nature Conservancy. But we have a fiduciary responsibility to our investors. And the whole model for us in this project is to prove that private investors can do well by doing good on the ground and doing good for local communities. So we got to have both halves of it work. We have to have the conservation be a shining example, and we also have to deliver these returns to our investors. And so that timeline is not as steep as the federal funding, but folks are watching, and they certainly want to see progress, and being able to complete this deal this calendar year would be a big step forward for the project. So that's what we're really focused on timeline-wise.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Mr. Chair.
Stephen Doby, looking for him there. Stephen wants to go ahead and come up and just pull a chair up there. You guys can, whatever you want to do.
And Senator Smith.
Yes, please.
May I address Senator Turner and Senator Webb's comments?
Yes, you may.
In terms of the survey, you had asked questions about, did the Commonwealth need to complete both the survey and title work for the property? And yes, under state law, we are required to both do a survey and title work for the property. And so, as we've testified previously, we have issued an RFP for the title work, and we are talking to a survey vendor to complete that work on our behalf. And Senator Webb, certainly we are would be happy to speak with you if you have any questions or concerns about the project, to try to allay those particular concerns.
It's not just a project, and I've gone through every level of communication with many individuals from the top down, followed proper protocol, and not gotten a response.
We're good at this time. Senator Turner, please.
You're a lawyer, correct?
Senator, are you
You're referring to you, yes.
Yes, I'm
All right,
General Counsel, Finance Cabinet.
If you do know that if there's a title search already done, you don't have to do another title search.
Well, Senator,
Or do you know land law?
Respectfully, I'd have to disagree. I think we are compelled by state law to do title work.
So if a done law firms, it's probably done work for you. I was done certified and done for the Nature Preserve, done certified, a title, a 100-year title of that. You're telling this body that the state agency that you working under the governor from one of those agencies are going to redo that again. Is that what you're telling me?
So we will bid that project out. The attorney that is chosen, or attorneys that are chosen, may look at the title work that was previously done, and if they can utilize that title work, we would certainly encourage that.
Well, I would request that we be made aware of that, and before that's done, I hope we'll drag somebody back over from your agency, whoever you're directly doing that from, to get that cleared up, because that's going to be a waste of time. And you've heard the urgency of the federal money, taxpayer dollars, because a title search is a title search is a title search under Kentucky law. It's got to be certified on the Supreme Court rules that lawyers that do it. And for the state to duplicate that would be pure waste, in my opinion. And we will stay on top of that. I can understand the survey, but I can't understand it all. You sitting there telling us that your agency is going to require another title search. I want somebody to certify to us, this body, this group, that they're under the law of Kentucky, that they have to do another title search. Because we as legislators can sure change that in a not real quick time. We can do a bill in one day to change that rule to get this thing moving. Would you please keep us advised of that? Go back and talk to whoever your superiors are and report to us whether you're going to have to do another title search. Can you do that?
Yes, we certainly will take that question and communicate with you.
I'd like something in writing back to us. You can send it to the chairman, or me, I'm vice chairman, whichever. Send it to the chairman, and so we can have that answer, because we can take care of that in a heartbeat. Pass a bill one day to stop that. Get the thing going on the survey. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Turner. At this time, we'll lead over to Stephen Doby. Is that the correct way to say your name?
That is correct.
Welcome to our committee, and we'll turn over your comments. Oh, check your mic there. Make sure it's on. Thank you.
There we go. That's better. I serve the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. I'm our Senior Conservation Program Manager, covering all the eastern United States. First, obviously, thank you, Chairman Smith and committee members, for the opportunity to speak today and offer some insight on this Attaya project. A little bit first about RMEF. Since 1995, RMEF and our partners have completed 194 projects in Kentucky's Elk Zone, and these have a combined value of, currently we're sitting at over $9.9 million we've invested in this area, and conserving or enhancing over 6,400 acres of habitat in this elk zone. So RMEF absolutely has a vested interest in Kentucky's elk herd, and despite all of our financial commitments to date, all of our successes and accomplishments to date, this CF Attaya project is the most impactful Eastern project that we've been involved with since our organization was founded in 1984. Thinking about public land in Kentucky, it's important to, when you look at these parcels across the state, the three largest public land units are all federally owned, and that accounts for roughly 854,000 acres. This CF Attaya property at 54,000 acres is the fourth largest public land unit in this state, and it's the largest privately owned tract that's enrolled in a public access program. So it's critical for sportsmen and women to have access to this. And that access currently is granted via a wildlife management area agreement between TNC and Department of Fish and Wildlife. And what's so important, critical to remember here is the financial plan for this project with TNC. This property will be sold in the coming years. And without this easement, or an easement like it in place, a future landowner with no public interest and with no interest in public access, this could be lost. Absolutely. And currently it accounts for 9% of the public land entirely within the Eastern Elk Zone. So the easement itself, most folks don't realize RMEF has a land protection division. So this is right up our alley. TNC was a natural fit partnering with this. So looking at the structure of an easement, what it does, yes, it does protect the conservation values of the property, limits subdivision, limits commercial development, but this maintains the ability to generate economic revenue streams through natural resources, timber harvest, natural gas, coal, of course, outdoor recreation. In addition to those conservation values, me personally, I'm biased. One of the most critical components here has been discussed prior is the permanent public access that would be granted, that managing authority to Fish and Wildlife. So collectively, this project is going to conserve and protect 54,000 acres of public access in perpetuity, and the kicker is that's regardless of the future landowner status. So this is forever, and this is for all sportsmen and women of Kentucky. Within the boundary of the Elk Zone itself, there's about 600,000 acres of public land, I believe. Almost all of those lands, they're not owned in fee title. They're public because they're enrolled in some form of often voluntary public access agreement. However, about 39% of those access agreements contain a 30-day out clause. So that landowner can opt out in 30 calendar days. You can imagine the frustration of sportsmen and women, not to mention the Department of Fish and Wildlife, if one of these landowners decides to opt out a month, 2 months before the onset of an elk season. That'd be devastating with regards to public access. Under the current strategy with this easement, that scenario would not come to fruition. With KDFWR having permanent management authority, that solves that problem. It's done.
Steve, can I ask you a question real quick?
Absolutely.
The survey was just awarded, and you all, I understand, agreed or offered to pay for the survey. Is that correct?
We have secured internal funds from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation towards this project, and if need be, we would be happy to engage. And
but I understand I understood you guys were denied. Did Revenue deny you offering to pay for financing, pay for this study?
We were not denied. We have volunteered to participate in any way, and if participate means pay the bill, we can do that. We can work towards that. But it's my understanding that finance is now moving towards the two components that we looked at were the environmental assessment and the baseline report, which is required for the conservation easement. So it's my I've been informed that that process is moving forward within finance. However, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation volunteered because we have the funds in hand, and I would logically think we could expedite the process if we had a agreeable vendor.
Well, and that's what just floored me. I'm sorry, I did not mean to cut you off, but I'd been notified that you all had secured the funds and had agreed to pay for it, and that finance has decided they're going to go on their own without your money to do it. And I just godsmacked by how this thing keeps taking twists and turns that seem to make no sense to me, other than that it delays the project. In this case, we're here just waste good tax dollars that could be spent for something else, and in doing so, further delays the project in there. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe I can't. Only the deputy commissioner can answer this. Maybe you all don't want this project or something, or I'm missing it. But it seems to me that that's a hard one to swallow. That this young gentleman here's organizations offer to pay for it, and then I'm told right here that finance has said no, thank you. We're going to go a different route. Please respond to that.
We will welcome their funding, and we have not told Rocky Mountain Elk we don't want your money. We welcome their funding in the project.
Okay, well, good. Listen, we will make that duly noted here publicly that you all have agreed for the revenue to accept the funding from the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and you all have agreed to raise it, and that'll help us get over that hurdle. And that's good news. I'll make sure that that's a duly noted here. But I have Senator Webb has a question.
I'll let Stephen finish if he's not finished with.
Just a few brief comments.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Last thing I wanted to touch on was, and it's the financial impacts of this, and it's with respect to hunting. And this is often overlooked in the sense that 2020, the Sportsmen's Alliance published a national economic impact study looking at by state, even legislative districts. It was pretty phenomenal, actually. Collectively, what they pulled from the Kentucky data illustrated that sportsmen and women in Kentucky had spent between $1.2 to $1.6 billion in hunting-related purchases. I mean, it's a significant revenue stream that most people outside of the sporting world overlook. Closer to home, the Department of Fish and Wildlife implements a post-elk hunter survey annually to gauge hunter satisfaction, but as well as some of the financials. The most recent report, these are all available online, for which data is available, 2021, revealed that hunters pursuing elk in Kentucky that responded to the survey spent $1.4 million in those local communities. And there's two important things there. That money, this is not dollars going toward hunting licenses or the permit application process. This is economy that's pumped right back into the ground, on the ground in these communities for fuel, gas, lodging, guides, equipment. So it's a critical revenue source. That's an understatement or underestimate because, we only have data from those that return the survey. So there's a extrapolation factor that when it's applied to broaden this across all sportsmen and women, because we know how many people are hunting elk, a permit's required. That number is actually about $3.62 million that's put right back into those local economies. And the phenomenal thing about it, when you think about it, this elk hunting on a timeline, it's a small window. So this is pumped back into those economies within probably a 3-month period, I'd say, within a given year. So the significance of those revenue streams are critical, especially to those areas that depend on it as an additional income source. And as most of us know here, that's especially true in eastern Kentucky and many of those counties. So in closing, it's my hope that we've illustrated the significance and the importance of this project, but also the public access component. That can't be understated. RMEF and TNC, we are extremely grateful for the legislative appropriation that was received last year towards this project. That filled a very important funding gap, and it's going to help bring this to fruition. We just want to resolve or solve some of these issues, creating delays, and ensure that we can get the due diligence done collectively and meet these timelines to do it in a fashion. Because TNC has, their investors have an interest in seeing this come to fruition. So, with regards to Senate Bill 217 in Section 11. My request is similar to that of TNC. We would simply ask you please consider clarification of who, whether KDFWR, Finance, has final signing authority with regards to procurement of the property itself and or the due diligence associated with it. Also, we'd like to evaluate whether the CFATI easement could be precluded from KRS 382-850. It requires written landowner consent before the easement can be transferred because we feel in this case it doesn't really apply. The mineral right owners, those rights are not impeded if this easement is established. And then, again, as Heather mentioned, considering amending timelines associated with when we can spend this legislative money, because we have due diligence to get done, and those funds are going to be critical for that. And then the ultimate closing timeline as well, to ensure that we get it all done when we need to get it done. It's, I'm obviously biased. It's a wonderful project. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this behalf, and if no one else remembers anything else I said today, know this. The CFATI easement project at 54,000 acres in the heart of the Southern Appalachians, this is truly a historic opportunity for Kentucky, and I can assure you it's one that will be recognized nationally. It's already getting that much attention, so thank you.
Thank you. Senator Webb.
Thanks, Stephen. I
Certainly.
appreciate you and all the work that y'all do, and I'm pretty sure we're going to clarify and alleviate your concerns regarding the project, and it will get going. But I just want to take the time, I was lucky enough to get a cow tag in Montana. Didn't get an elk 'cause it's too cold. They were a lot smarter than us. They weren't moving, but I dropped several $1,000s in the Montana economy. And so
Yes.
I can attest to the fact that, it's a money maker for this. But public access is crucial. And we have an agency that's funded by the sales of licenses. And if we run out of public access, this is a problem throughout the nation. We're killing our own fish and wildlife agencies, and they are at the forefront of conservation. But I also want to, as past president of the National Sportsmen's Caucus, Legislative Caucus, and then we're now in 50 states, and I just want to thank the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation for always being there for us in the 20 years that we've been in existence, and looking out for the sportsmen and women of the country and the habitat of these animals that bring other animals. I mean, it restores his historic ecosystems to the Appalachians and beyond. So I appreciate you, and I would just urge sportsmen and women to support the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation in what they do, because we're getting a return on that investment. Those of us who have and do are now getting a return on that investment, and it is an investment. And I just want to thank the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation for all you do everywhere, and appreciate you being here today.
Well, thank you, Senator Webb. That's very much appreciated. Truly, it is. Thank you.
Well, folks, we're going to wrap up here. I want to thank everyone that testified for us today. David, you and Heather have done an amazing job and sort of been the catalyst of bringing this to us. But I can assure everyone, Chairman, I will not let this project go. It is too big. It is beyond us up here, and people like Doug Hensley and Dr. Webb and so many others that went ahead of us to give us this opportunity for you to even select us. So one thing's for sure, if we don't spend this federal money, some other state will. The state of Kentucky has our work cut out for us. We don't need to leave this on the table. You talk about a legacy. The legacy that would be left if we don't do this and somebody else take it will be one that I'll be no part of. So with that said, we stand adjourned.